All right, everyone out there, I'm so excited today because Mary Scott is with us. And then we've got, of course, some of our community Leap for Ladies here with us today to learn. And Mary Scott is super genius when it comes to pitching. So many of us don't think about investors. And I'll tell you, when you start gathering as many businesses as I do for like hobbies, you have to start pitching yourself to investors because you run out of cash. And a lot of you that might be starting up a new business plans are so important because you don't realize how much working capital it takes to keep investing in your business. And that is the number one reason I say, Mary, maybe not you, but I would love for you to validate this or not. I think that's why businesses fail. They literally run out of capital. They've put in so much personal that they just can't like dig themselves out. But if they do it the right way, in the first time, and then they pitch to investors, that's going to give them the opportunity to be able to be successful because they've not only got the fuel of the funding behind them, but that's going to help them drive and have more time. So I'm going to spotlight our Masterclass host today, which is Mary Scott. And then go ahead, Mary, and I would love to hear more about you. Now, Mary's been around me for how long now, would you say? 4 years, Mary, we've known
4 or
each
5,
other?
something like that, yeah.
At least. Like it was probably right before COVID or when COVID happened, we kind of dropped in each other's lives through networking and online. And Mary's been to some of my retreats in Arizona. She really is just like this ball of fire and has an amazing background of accomplishments. Like, I think we forget how much we've been able to accomplish in our lives and the breadth of that and how we bring that forward into what we're doing today. She's also a grandma. And so go ahead, Mary, share your life with us and teach us about pitching, why it's so important.
Okay, yes, you are absolutely correct. One of the biggest reasons businesses fail is they are undercapitalized. And some of that also has to do with spending too much money up front and not trying to get some revenue first. You know, you spend just enough to get some revenue so that you've got a track record. Even if you haven't broken even, you need to have that flow. But a little bit about me. I come from New York. I was a video producer in New York. I made documentary films and I made a cable TV show on science fiction, and fantasy, and just got a chance to use my backstage pass to the world to find other people with interesting stories and help get those out there. So that was fun. That makes me very well connected, and it made me very aware of how businesses work and how they don't work. That's where I got into the startup ecosystem when I landed in New York, in St. Louis. We're in St. Louis. I landed in St. Louis about 10 years ago and found this great startup business ecosystem and decided that I wanted to be part of that, and I wanted to be there at the early stage so people could learn to do it right the first time so they didn't have to fix it later. That was part of my video production thing. Let's shoot it right the first time so we don't have to fix it in post. That's where that came from. But when you're pitching to customers, you have a particular message, and it's about you help them solve this problem so they can. And it's about the benefits of them working with you to solve a specific problem. It's not about how you do what you do. And this is something that often startups will get all excited about how they do what they do, and they can't wait to share their secret sauce. And oh my goodness, nobody likes the flavor of their secret sauce. Or people aren't willing to pay for it. They like the flavor, but they're not willing to buy it. So you need to first know that you help a specific group of people solve a specific problem so they can. That goes for pitching to customers or investors. And then knowing who your potential investors are and what they're looking for. Now, the vast majority of investors are looking to get their money back plus within about 5 years. If you're not a company that can scale and be sold for an X amount of money, so your investors get their money back plus a nice piece of change, then you're not really investor material. There is another kind of investor, though. There's an investor who wants something to do with their legacy. So if you've got something truly unique, like a kombucha that is fruity and delicious rather than what everybody else flavor is, you call it kombucha, and then you get somebody else who's going to invest in this because they want to be the next Mountain Dew or the next major thing that everybody's going to start to buy. So they want their legacy, they want their name attached to something cool, and the money is separate. The money is expected, but it's not the main point. And the other thing is that investors tend to have areas that they like to invest in. So there are people who like biotech, or there are people who like apps, or there are people who like restaurants or condominiums. So you need to know what kind of business you're in and who else is interested in that kind of business before you even bother going to investors. And then the last thing I suggest people do is to practice their pitching. Absolutely practice your pitching. There are organizations around the country which meet every Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. There's one called 1 Million Cups, which we used to have in St. Louis, but then they closed our chapter down. So I didn't want to lose this for early stage startups. So we started Pitch STL, and it's Wednesday mornings at 9 o'clock, and 1 or 2 people get a chance to present their company for 6 minutes and get 20 minutes worth of feedback from the community who is in the audience. We call it a warm, fuzzy Shark Tank. So you need to do that practicing. You need to get feedback before it really means something. If you haven't done your pitch and gotten community feedback 5 times before you get in front of somebody you can actually write a check, you're not likely to actually get that check. If you've done your practice and paid attention to your feedback, then you are more likely to get that check. So that's pretty much stuff in a nutshell. I'm happy to take questions. Any comments and stuff, that would be great.
Yeah, I have a question. So, what are some of the pieces that a company should prepare in this warm, fuzzy Shark Tank that you're talking about? 'Cause
Okay.
we've all seen it online, you
Yeah.
know, when they do it on TV,
Mhm.
and they're always looking at like, what is your growth opportunities? How much money is needed that you're borrowing, and what would that invest or
Mhm.
not borrowing, but what would that investment look like
Right.
and the percentages?
Sure. You need to show the investors a bunch of things. First, that first phrase, you help which people solve what problems so they can. Then it's a little bit of how you are uniquely qualified to solve this problem. Then it's who's your competition and why are you different or better than or both than they are. Then you add some financials, some predictions. If you're pre-revenue, you can look at how the industry is working, generally speaking, and where you fit in it. If you have some revenue, that's better. And then you can show it in charts and graphs and do some projections about how it's going to be over the next 3 to 5 years. If you're not thinking about revenue because you're developing some kind of new drug or a new product that needs some testing, you can look at key performance indicators or KPIs. So you look at in 3 months, we'll be at this point. And in 3 months after that, we will have developed this. So that you've got a progression that shows progress towards the goal of coming up with a minimally viable product or an MVP. There's lots of initials in this particular realm of business. So, and don't don't ever feel embarrassed about asking what some initials mean. So yeah, so your competition, what makes you uniquely qualified, your KPIs or how your revenue is happening, and the ask, what are you going to use the money for? People want to know, what are you going to use their money for? And then they want to know what's in it for them. So what do you expect to be able to give back to investors at the end of X time period? And then the rest of it, you leave open to questions. You don't just throw everything you know up into a pitch deck. Sometimes the details of the finances or the details of your process are something you don't need to go into. Wait until the audience actually leans in and engages and starts asking you questions. You can have slides that show some of this other stuff, but that's not in your main pitch. That comes up later when there's a question and, oh my goodness, you have the answer, surprise.
I love that. Dawn, you had unmuted yourself. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I think my question at the beginning was, is this just for product or is it for services also?
It can be for services also.
Such as what types of
Well,
services?
particularly if it's something scalable, you've come up with a new customer service model, or you've come up with a new coaching model that you can certify people in so that it's scalable. And how
Okay.
you've put together the credit courses or whatever to be able to certify people and how many people will come in because you're solving this specific problem for these people so they can. You know, you
Okay.
can't, it's harder to find investors for a service rather
Right.
than a product, but it is not impossible.
So Heidi Calendar, is it Heidi? I forgot. Heidi could have been a perfect person to be on this call with you today.
Yes, I will refer this to her so that she can contact Mary, and I'll send Mary's information to her because her and Carolina Lopez both have products that are like lotions and face products and products for your body that could use this type of pitching for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. And we've gotten quite a few startups that are doing very well. One of my favorites is a gal named Michelle Robinson who has a company called Demi Blue. She does vegan, cruelty-free nail polish. She created this nail polish because her mother had cancer and her mother loved to do nails and didn't want to be exposed to all those terrible chemicals that you find in normal nail polish. So she created Demi Blue. It is now being even sold in some Walmarts and some of the other fancy, less fancy places around town. And she just opened a storefront in St. Louis. So, yeah. So there are things that people can do with products for sure. Anybody else?
I have another question. If somebody wanted to do, and this is just out of the blue, somebody wanted to do like a white label, take a product, white label it, basically put your own stuff on it. Does that qualify for something like this or not necessarily because it isn't your product?
It's not your product, and that's the other thing. Investors want to know how much you actually own. So if you've got a patent on something or a trademark on something, that's better. If you're going to white label something, you have to show that your marketing or your branding or whatever it is you're adding to this thing is valuable enough that the investor is going to get their investment back. What are you doing differently with this white label than somebody else is doing with the same product and a different label? So
Have
if you're a
people try to do
multi-level
that?
marketer, you're not going to get investors. That's not.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, yeah. I was just curious because I've heard about that before, and I do know somebody that white labels something, so I was just curious if they can go out and get investors. So that was a good
Sure.
point.
And sometimes it's a situation where you've created a single product that's really good, that's your own, that you've got a patent on, but you need to be able to sell more than one product in your online space. So
Yeah.
that's what, that way you could white label other stuff as long as you have at least one thing there that's actually yours.
Hmm. Interesting.
Anything else? Practice, yes, practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Mary, for sharing that information. I'm going to connect you with Carolina Lopez. She owns Bijou, and Heidi Calendar owns Heidi Calendar products. And they both were at the conference, and they both are looking to grow and are looking for, I believe, investors and how to be able to, launch in the market, for like 15,000 products sold between now and the end of the year. And I think this is a good start for them to connect with you and get your information. And that's really where it starts, right? We just get one connection and then you can connect them to an investor, or it just kind of starts here and keeps rolling,
Exactly. And sometimes your intellectual property attorney can connect you with manufacturers in the US. That's a big thing now, is if you can get something produced in the US rather than having to go to China or India for it, that's better. There are some distribution benefits to that, and as well as marketing benefits to that. But these are the folks that can help you actually get your product to market faster. Sometimes it's important, and particularly if you've got beauty products, you spend some money on packaging. And you make sure that that packaging is as appealing and specific to the feeling you want people to have when they use your products.
Yeah. Did anyone else have any questions for Mary on this subject about pitching? Okay. What I'm going to do here, give me 1 second.